All right, well, let's call the meeting to order. It's about 7:31, I believe. If I could, anybody have any questions about the minutes? If not, if I could get an approval?
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, how about the financials review? Who's doing that today? All right.
Morning, everyone. How's everyone this morning?
Good.
Good to hear. Attached is the RDA budget and actuals report as of June 30th, 2025. These reports represent year-to-date budgeted and actual expenditures in the operating budget and actual expenditures in the capital budget. Revenues, expenditures, and other funding sources are reported once they are realized. As of June 30th, 2025, expenses are $151.32 for bond services, $82.03 for water service, which totals $233.35. Yearly bond payments have also been made as of April, so no changes from last month. Any questions?
All right, if I could get an approval, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, financials. Are there any public comments for items that are not listed as public hearing or discussion? All right, any business items with public hearing or public discussion? If not, we will move on to other business. Discussion on new RDA developments. Aaron.
Good morning, board members. Happy to see you all this morning again. And we're going to be hitting again, just talking about the two areas of focus that we've been discussing the last couple of meetings, based on some, helps if you turn it on, there we go. If you want to, yeah, I'll just have you go ahead and advance because it is not advancing with the remote. I'm going to go to the next slide. The first district we're going to look at is that affordable housing overlay district, the broader district that we have been talking and got some feedback from the board on at the last meeting. If you would kick to the next. Oh, yeah, that would be why. I didn't even notice that. Thank you. Thanks. So as you see, we made some adjustments. The areas of the university area and the medical area, we pulled those out of this district. And those will be on the commercial district that is defined as the southwest quadrant per your direction. I also carved out an area to the northwest. It's more commercial and mostly new housing or very newish housing developments, so unlikely to see a lot of need for blight removal or remediation or available redevelopment spaces in that area. So we also carved those spaces out. Still captures the bulk of what we're looking at for qualified census tracts, which is the Randall Park neighborhood area, the downtown core, and then that north side hill area is all qualified census tract. So we're hitting a lot of the areas that have a high percentage of older structures. Some of the indicators we're looking at for vacant lots, et cetera, are in these areas. And so there's a lot of, again, potential for examining for redevelopment. Any questions on this or any thoughts or concerns on this map? I would throw out one thought. It was brought forward by somebody else. Is there any thought about Mount Washington area? So that can be seen just outside the boundary, north side of the river, there in the southwest quadrant. The Mount Washington project itself is moving forward again. The developer had hit a snag with one of their financiers. They've replaced that equity partner and are looking to move back forward with the redevelopment of Mount Washington itself. But it is also, again, an older neighborhood area. We know last year there was one property that the city did raise. Had a tree fell through it, had a roof the size of a half-court basketball court in it. Property owner wasn't doing anything, so the city ended up doing a raise order for safety and took the structure down. So there are some properties that would be potential targets for the RDA. That particular space, the owner's out of state. They haven't paid off the special assessment. It's 3 years, I believe, behind on property taxes. So there are viable options in that area as well. Any thoughts on maybe looking to pick up some additional area based off this broader focus district?
Are you talking specifically into the Mount Washington section?
That, or if there are any other areas that you feel we should maybe take a look at on the peripheries of this, again, this map. We're trying to keep it fairly condensed. Talking with Steve Nick, City Attorney Nick, we feel like this is one as an overlay district would work well for an expansion. It's definitely much bigger than what we've done in the past. He felt there might be challenges to try and do the full city overlay district that we had originally talked about. I'd mentioned that on the last meeting, so this is the compromise. But there's still probably some opportunity to pick up some additional space if you feel like there's an area we should be looking at. It just should be contiguous. That would be the one thing.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I'm wondering, Erin, if you could help me think through timing on this. So this is the first time on RDA that I've been here when we're talking about creating new districts. So I don't have a good understanding of how long it takes to actually, like if we give direction today, how long it would take to actually create this district. I know council has to approve those boundaries. And the reason I'm asking about timing is I also know that in the CIP process, council did allocate $1 million to RDA for land acquisition and affordable housing projects. So I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around if we would be using that $1 million budget to do projects in this area potentially, or if this is something that would take much longer to actually finalize. That would just help me answer that question, I think.
That's a great question. My hope is to be able to have something for the city to approve by the end of this calendar year, city council to approve. From a process standpoint, we are kind of working two tracks right now. We're looking at the area, defining it by the metrics that are identified by statute that can determine where an RDA can operate. And Kendall has been pulling a lot of that data down and kind of pulling it together to look at. It looks at some of the indicators are high rates of vacancy, blighted, dilapidated properties. You also see higher crime rates, higher poverty rates, a number of things that can be, so this area can be identified with that criteria. At the same time, we're starting to draft how our more specific strategies to redevelop within that district. So those collectively would be brought for the RDA board to approve. This is the area we want to work in, and we use street boundaries to define those instead of a full legal meets and lays. And then within that boundary, here are the strategies we're going to employ to improve properties, to remove blight, and to improve the condition of the neighborhoods that they're operating in. Once the RDA approves that, then that goes to council, and council would have an opportunity to add to it, specify any concerns, ask for amendments, suggestions, whatever that goes. We're still working on the process because it's been a very long time since we've done a new RDA district. I believe it would then to go back to the RDA, but ultimately it would come back to council for full approval with council's input. And then that, once council approves that district, you can then operate as the RDA within that space, acquiring properties and clearing blight. So the form that creates it is a resolution. I have two examples of two previous districts we're running. We're trying to find a nice middle ground. One was 10 pages, pretty straightforward. The other one had a consultant and was over 100 pages. So we're going to try and avoid going that route. It had lots and lots and lots of data. So we're going to try and avoid spending that kind of time and expense to do that. We think we can find a middle ground and do it internally. But that would be our plan, our trajectory. We'd like to have this operational in place in time to start operating come January 1st.
Ray, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. For the Mount Washington question, I'd say I'm open. I guess in the past, I thought of that as a separate district, as its own kind of neighborhood contiguous district, similar to the way the RDA has done kind of neighborhood districts prior. But under this approach, it could make sense, so I'm open, especially with the affordable housing focus that this district would take. So be interested in everyone else's thoughts on that. And then my question has to do with the border on the southeast side through, the border to the 3rd Ward and the border to the East Hill. Could you just talk a little bit more about what went into those specific boundaries as far as why those streets were chosen as the border versus anywhere else? Just for information.
Sure. The downtown core area, so right as you cross the river, where it kind of follows down along, I believe that's along Graham Ave, and then cuts over and up. So there are some properties. This district would allow for pursuing some commercial project as well, if there's a blighted commercial area that's identified. There are a couple of spaces down there that we know have issues. One that's an abandoned commercial structure. It's been empty for years, and this includes that district, so there would be some potential to take action on that site if need be. Talking with some other organizations such as the YMCA, who's looking at how they look in the city, there could be an opportunity for redevelopment in there. And again, we don't know if the RDA needs to play any type of role in that, but capturing some of those districts there would allow for some of that to happen. The other areas, you're getting in a lot more of the historical design overlays, which makes it a little more challenging to do infill from our standpoint, because as we'll look at some of the strategy and some of the programs we're looking at, some of the replacements that we're looking at and we'll be bringing forward to this organization would be tougher to fit into the potential aesthetics and overlays of design for the new zoning code. So it's kind of a reflection of that. It's not to say that they couldn't be added, pick up more of the East Hill area or more of the Third Ward, but design and some of the older structures that are there, harder to do under the program that we're looking to operate from our standpoint. But if the board wanted that extended and capturing those areas, we could certainly do that. The Third Ward is fully in a qualified census tract, and portions of East Hill are too, so that would be certainly an eligible area to pull into a broader district.
So I have one question on Mount Washington. Based on the timeline you just described, if we do not add it in now, but yet you just kind of explained 2 or 3 property opportunities, walk us through, does that just delay the opportunity to make some changes there? And I guess the reason I say that is if we're going to council and we're going to take this, do we just add it in? Because we know there's some opportunities there, and so it makes sense to do it, versus all of a sudden we've taken this all to council and the next greatest opportunity is someone who's over in the Mount Washington district saying, I'd like to engage in a conversation with the RDA. What does that process look like if they're not included, right?
Yeah, it doesn't delay it or change the timeline, or at least it shouldn't. In our experience, an area could always be added or amended to a district down the road. Again, I don't know that we've specifically done that in the past, but it is an option to say, oh, this is an area we should have included when we created this district. We can expand this area or this area to capture another neighborhood down the road. We just initially started with the West Claremont, North Claremont Road, and then using North Crossing and East Hastings. Those are clearly definable street boundaries, easy to create a definable district and an operational district for an area. So that's where we kind of use that as a basis for starting our layout.
So one additional follow-up. So if we want to include Mount Washington, do we make it a separate district, back to Ray's point? Do we literally look at this big, huge one and then set that one aside so that you can better define the boundaries, or do we just add it in?
I think in this case, you'd be better off to just add it in, because you're looking to do the same type of redevelopment. It is going to follow the same type of guidelines you're going to be doing for the broader district. If there was a different redevelopment intent, say this was to be a district like what the Cannery was, we're acquiring blocks of space that you're going to scrape and clear out large sections of light and redo broader developments, then I would say a standalone district would be more advisable. But as this is still intended to be the same strategy, I think just adding it to the existing district, and it's a continuous area, would be an appropriate way to do it and an easy way to accommodate that.
Furthering that question once more, do we have an idea of approximate lines of where that boundary might fall? Is it paralleling 94 there, kind of, or paralleling Claremont out halfway between the two? Where would we draw the lines?
I think initially we'd probably use the river as the southern boundary, follow the curve around, and then find an appropriate street crossover, and then come back up and capture the rest of the area using a street boundary. We'd look to find an appropriate district that captures areas that have potential for redevelopment and trying to exclude areas that have already seen redevelopments or improvements.
Thank you. I think I would be in favor of adding Mount Washington to this district. Just thinking about the timing of everything, and making sure that we have as many options as possible to be as responsive as possible to different opportunities that might come up. Because knowing that there are some examples, some known sites that might be good fits, I guess I'd be in favor of adding it.
Is anybody opposed?
Okay, we'll look to extend this a little bit further into the Shawtown area.
Moving on to the next item? Are
Yeah,
we?
well,
All right, finished? or-
Have more
Okay.
to go on this space. So the Uptown District, again, this is a temporary district name that we are using. Here is the map based on revisions requested by the board the last time. We are picking up that medical area, picking up a portion of the Sacred Heart Hospital. Obviously, there are some plans in the works for that area. We thought it would be worth including in a district in case those plans don't move forward. Or even if it does move forward, is there a role the RDA can play in helping see some of the proposed redevelopment that's looking to occur in the Sacred Heart Hospital area, the old HSHS structure? For those who aren't aware, there's Blue Gold Foundation is involved, and they're looking to do a number of things. It's a sizable project. What they're proposing is a real good opportunity for the community, but it's a heavy lift, and it could require a number of different groups to kind of step in and help execute phases of it. We also dropped south of the Highway 12, North Claremont, and captured the old Shopco Plaza area, and then came back west, captured the old Artisan Forge structure and building, and then moving on in the west to what was originally the original proposed structure there on the west side of 37. What we were looking at to capture, like the one of the extent was to potentially pick up Artisan Forge because it is changing in nature. There may be an opportunity. We don't know what's going to be going on with that space moving forward. It's not operating as it had been. There may be something to look at there. We're still seeing issues with the remnant of the Shopco Plaza space. That strip mall has not gotten any better. It's been a long-running concern from a number of reasons. So capturing that into a district that would allow for commercial operation would be a good strategy to potentially help move something moving forward. So any questions or concerns on this district as we're showing? Again, this would be a more traditional long-range acquire, clearing of blight and spin out for redevelopment of most likely commercial, could be mixed use in some of those areas. Comp plan identifies, I think we mentioned this before, the comp plan identifies the area along the river, which is currently I-2 heavy industrial, as medium to high density residential. It is a lot of floodplain down in that area, so this is definitely that's a big flood criteria for potential operations by the RDA. So there's a lot of potential development in this space. There's a lot of underutilized spaces in that area as well. You have a lot of heavy commercial and light industrial projects that don't need to be in the heart of the community anymore. If there's an opportunity, they find a new location, move into one of our more traditional industrial or commercial parks, there's an opportunity to really kind of acquire and really clean up some of these areas and shift it to a higher and better use in this region.
Any questions? Oh, Ray, go ahead.
Thank you. Quick question on the southwest corner. Is there any thoughts to continuing along the river to 94 to pick up just the last bit there on the kind of southwest side of Short Street?
We certainly could look at that. Yeah, again, we just grabbed Short Street. It was kind of an easy border, clearly defined border, but we could look to capture some of that, going further south along there if there's an interest.
Yeah, just to kind of keep that kind of whole space in the picture of the redevelopment area, what this area along the river could be, getting down to 94 might be interesting and provide some opportunity. But otherwise, it looks like what we had discussed. And
We can definitely take a look at that.
Any other questions on this section? All right,
Okay, the next piece we'll look at is a little bit of some district comparison numbers. Just hitting a few basic statistics. The broader affordable housing district, you're looking at 21,350 folks living in that broader district, a growth rate of about 0.54%, 9,700 households, just some basic district information. Here we start looking at some of the numbers that define looking at options. In the affordable housing district, our community or our business analyst software also shows a slide that said there is only 55% or 55% of the units in there are rentals versus homeownership occupied within that district. So it's a higher rental area when you look at that space. Also about 30, I can rerun the numbers, but about 37% of the households in that district make less than half of the median county income. So the household makes less than $34,000 a year. So it is an area that definitely sees lower income, has greater struggles in terms of equity and housing availability within that area. And again, those are one of those criterias that can be used to help identify regions in which the RDA can operate. So again, just hitting some basic statistics. Again, the affordable housing district, you have a lot of housing that's older stock, prior to 1970. Some of our reviews on that, we found some houses in some areas down in the 1800s in that area. So there's some very, very old housing in some of those regions. Some of it's in good shape, it's been rehabbed, it's been renovated and taken care of. Some of it looks like it was built in the 1800s. So it definitely is an area that needs some attention and has some opportunity for the RDA to do some good. So just a few quick pieces on that. Any questions? Any other thoughts on overall demographics or anything like that?
I have one question. So the line here that says vacant housing, how is vacant defined? Is that truly abandoned properties, or what is?
That is a tough number for us to kind of really narrow down. We're trying to use several different indicators. On the commercial side, we have worked with the fire department, and they identify any space that they do commercial inspections annually, and any space that they can't get into, it's no longer occupied, they just mark it as unoccupied. So we take that in. Now, you always have to take that with a grain of salt. It simply could be that it's a commercial building that doesn't have a tenant in it at the moment. We've also used some other metrics, water connections that don't have an active water meter operating in the space, so there's no water use on a space. Again, could be a sign that the house or the home is vacant, or it could be that at the time it was taken, it was someone who's, say, a snowbird who is down south for the wintertime, because this was done in late October when we looked at this data. So we're looking at a number of these different metrics, trying to help narrow and define what's going on within these districts. We'll be working with a number of different organizations as we start building parameters of how we evaluate properties. Our inspections department is part of that. Nicole Craggs is here tonight. She's with the county health department. Her team, who does the housing inspections and surveys, their data and the work they do will be part of that, and they'll be part of the discussions as we look to see what's going on in these districts and defining which properties do we want to take a look at, which ones do we want to pursue further. So that'll be part of this process that we build into our plan that will go to council as well, determining some benchmarks and criteria for what the RDA would look at moving forward within these districts. And we'll have some of those discussions at our nearby future meetings.
Any other questions, comments for Aaron?
Okay, wanted to hit a little bit on, so again, a little more data. Safety calls, higher rates of police incident calls are again one of the indicators of an area that's experiencing blight issues. So this is some more data that kind of goes into these areas. Want to touch a little bit about some of the strategies we would look to employ within the district. We've been talking with a number of different partners in the community, one being the Housing Authority, and also been talking a lot with, and we've been talking with a group for going on 2 years now on the use of manufactured housing as a low-cost means to do some infill replacement on certain sites. So some examples of what we see as potential for low-cost affordable housing. These are two of the units that are available through Town and Country. They have their dealership in Lake Alley, or Village of Lake Alley. These are 2-bed, 1-bath, 2-bed, 2-bath. They have a lot of different floor plans and layouts. As we've walked through those, and we're getting ready to do a tour of one of the manufacturing facilities to take a look at it from the inside, from some of our building inspections folks will be going with us on that to kind of take a good look at how these things are put together. The unit on the left, they have a model of that setting at the Lake Alley facility, and as it sits, that unit is $114,000 as it sets. Our estimate is that that's a turnkey unit at maybe 140 or 150 on an existing lot. Those are price points that you're not hitting with stick built. Nobody's building those. So there's this type of infill has its place on the right properties. Again, it's challenging. You're not talking about traditional layout. Obviously, the one on the left, you're talking about an entryway that's on the side of the house instead of the end of the house. So the lot size, the lot orientations have to be right. The one on the right has a more of a traditional entryway on the end of the house. You look at a lot of the non-conforming lots that we have in some of the older neighborhoods where they're very narrow, very long lots. Hard to build under even in the new zoning codes, hard to build with setback requirements to replace those housing with stick built. These types of houses can fit in some of these non-conforming lots and bring those back into compliance. Should some of those really blighted structures be taken down, this becomes an opportunity for potential for rentals or potential for home ownership through a managed program. Another one we wanted to show was this one. Genesis is out of Texas. They are building and marketing these as ADUs. Our new zoning code, however, through the allowance of carriage courts, garden courts, and some different configurations of units, these could potentially be clustered on a common drive and treated as a carriage court, which can have up to 6 units, or a garden court, which can have, I believe, 4. They're basically like a one-bedroom apartment. Housing Authority has over 700 people on their waiting list. About 60% of them need a studio or one-bedroom apartment for public housing. So this type of unit would fit the need for what they have and would be income restricted, would be income qualified, rent restricted. Our thought is a potential for 3 tiers of projects within the district. One would be to partner with the Housing Authority. The RDA could purchase these types of units, put them in a development cluster in a carriage court configuration or what on appropriate lots, and then have an agreement with the Housing Authority where the Housing Authority manage them as one of their public housing units. We would pay them an administrative fee. They would handle all the screening, handle all the collections. They would do handle any maintenance requirements and would just simply invoice that back to the RDA, and the RDA would pay for it, and the RDA would then collect the rents. The rents would cover those administrative fees, cover any basic maintenance, and will allow for a reserve to be created to pay later deferred bigger item maintenance or to invest in other properties down the road. So it has an opportunity to help the RDA grow the fund to be able to do additional housing. The thought is that for the right certain lots that are acquired by the RDA could purchase and sell these as infill lot development. Again, doing these as a turnkey, dropping in the prime example, the raised property that we referenced in town of Washington, or Mount Washington in the Shawtown neighborhood. That was a 2-bedroom home that was torn down, that had roof collapse, et cetera. One of these placed back as an infill on the same lot replaces the housing type that was removed, and again, could be run with the Housing Authority doing, say, income qualifications. So it's targeting folks who are maybe the plan is to target folks who are making 80% CMI or 70% CMI as eligible buyers for a property like this. There's a lot of ways that can do that the board have some capacity to help align how to do. So there could be some very appropriate infill using these types of housing units to put some housing on the ground that's not being seen currently. The other leg that we think is an option is properties that we've identified that are to the extreme, but are not unsalvageable. Ones that have solid foundations that could be renovated or turned into a good viable project. There are community partners, Habitat for Humanity, Home for Good, that are working with housing rehab projects and do affordable housing off of that. So RDA could, for the right projects, acquire the sites, and then turn them back over to somebody who will bring them back into livable condition and turn those into good affordable workforce home for folks in the community. So those are kind of three rough tracks that we've been working on and think would be a good start to redevelopment plans within the district. And again, the board would have final say on how those run. But would I get some feedback on your thoughts on looking at that? What are your, any concerns, questions, anything you would like us to also take a look at in terms of how we do redevelopment operations within the new RDA districts?
Do you have any data on the one over off of Folsom Street on the west side? Did something similar, correct? Project wasn't a city involved, it was private, but I just didn't know if you had any, what the success rate of that has been? You know what I'm referring to, right?
Oh, yeah, that's Cody's, yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
C&Ms. They are working on that. Right now, we're working with them. Those units would be your traditional single wide style manufactured homes. We actually just walked through that site with them. The issue they're running into right now is financing on those. The original thought was to still run it structured as a typical mobile home park, where the units, even though the units are on permanent foundation, they remove the axles and the tires and the tongues, and they're put on a permanent immovable foundation. They're actually not even, as I recall, they're not even licensed with that structure. They're not even licensed by the county as manufactured homes anymore. The land ownership was the challenging piece. The developers were owning the land and leasing that long term. They're struggling to find banks who can give good terms for that. They're still needing to put together a high amount of cash up front, plus you have the rent of the land. They just weren't getting the terms that they needed that folks could afford.
But it is modular homes, correct?
Those are manufactured homes.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they are modular. The biggest difference between the two is modular homes are UDC inspected, so they're inspected according to state building codes. Manufactured homes are inspected according to federal HUD codes at the facility. You can also do some utility connections and things with a manufactured home differently than you can under a UDC inspected home. So there's some subtle differences that way. Any of these manufactured homes can be, any one of these can be either set as a modular or a manufactured home. And that's just a matter of the standards that, the inspection standards that they use on those. But they're looking at restructuring how the lot's laid out to try and get home ownership or land ownership tied in with the property. We're actually meeting with them, I believe, next week to kind of walk through what they can do to kind of change how that property is structured, which allow them to get the financing terms that they're looking for their clients, their potential buyers. They have a lot of interest in it. These units are the smaller one is in the 700 square foot range. The larger ones are in the 1,100 square foot range, and they're getting a lot of interest. They have several that are purchased or coming. It's just a matter of getting the structure in a way that makes it easier for them to pull financing together.
And I guess that was kind of my main question, was what was the interest? So, I mean, I could
Yep.
see where this would play a role, and
With
I'm
the
not
price-
opposed to anything, so.
With the price points you're looking at, there's a ton of interest because it is very affordable housing. It is this is the category, is one of those missing middle housing points that are talked about in communities all over the country. We just haven't seen these built in most regions. And this is a very affordable option in these areas.
Jessica?
Thank you. I just wanted to share the feedback that the Housing Opportunities Commission also recently reviewed some of this information and had a presentation from Housing Authority And I would say generally, I think Hawk was interested and supportive of that concept. I don't want to speak on behalf of Hawk, but I think generally people were interested in pursuing the idea further. And I wanted to share then also, I'm really excited about the idea of RDA working closely with Housing Authority on this and just seeing that kind of new type of collaboration. And I wasn't sure when Hawk received this presentation, the question I had was like trying to figure out the financial piece of it because RDA needs some type of investment. I wasn't quite understanding like how this would actually work. And so I appreciate, Erin, that you talked through what that would look like and that RDA would then be the ones that would receive the rent on these types of properties. And so I think that's an interesting kind of longer-term sustained funding source back to RDA. Obviously, I know some of that, like we talked about, would need to be retained for long-term maintenance on the properties, but I wanted to share that I think it's a really interesting and exciting idea.
The advantage of the manufactured homes is they come in, the dealer who still is, and they'd go out to an RFP, it wouldn't necessarily be town and country, they'd have to all submit a proposal to deliver product that's identified as desirable by the RDA. They can do a full turnkey. They are the general contractor for the entire process. They'll pour the pad, they'll connect the utilities, so that one company who's bringing in the unit does everything tied to it. We would have one person, our intent is to have Billy Hufford, our community development project coordinator, would be the contact and kind of the program manager from our end of things. She would be the one that liaisons with the developers bringing these in. So it's a single quote price, it's a turnkey, it's going to cost X. So each time we come to the RDA, we'd be looking at here's a complete cost. This is what it costs to do for this space, for this project, and we can approve them on a site-by-site basis through the RDA. It's a lot more straightforward than trying to get quotes to subcontractors and going through that process to do stick builds. So it's a faster process, and it's a much more of a turnkey process. These units, they've referenced, they believe that, again, they haven't brought one in yet, but the dealer who's handling these, again, they're coming up from Texas. They feel that they can set these on site for about $80,000 as a turnkey. So it gives an idea for what they're looking at. Current cost to build the large multifamily developments is $250,000 or $258,000 a unit was the last one that I saw from a project coming forward. So these become a very affordable per unit cost. We'd have to look at, with Housing Authority doing these, we have to look at what HUD compliance is. Do we need zero entryway? How many units would have to be ADA compliant for zero entryway or ramp access? But it's all known factors that can be defined in by a development. We think this process has an opportunity to create community in these spaces. If you're talking about a carriage court is basically a shared driveway coming off a street, and then all the units orientated coming off the driveway instead of the street. So green space on the backside, everybody orientated with their mini drives coming off a short private lane, creates a small community cluster. So there's an opportunity to create community within these developments for socializing. We'll be working to see what recommendations Housing Authority have to, are there community amenities that maybe should be put into one of these court clusters to help encourage folks to interact and get out and socialize together. So there's a lot of advantages doing some of these cluster type developments.
The one question I have, I like the idea, I love the concept. The question I have really goes back to the ongoing pro forma and the pros and cons to the RDA being the landlord with the Housing Authority versus seeking to incentivize developers to do this for us, of which we partner with them. And I guess I would like to see what are those pros and cons before we go all in and say, hey, the RDA should be the ongoing landlord. Should the RDA be more of the incentivizer to go find a developer to be the landlord and do this with the Housing Authority? I just would like to see the pros and cons to that long term. And maybe there is to Jessica's point and to yours, Erin, maybe there's a benefit of us having income back to the RDA, but I'd like to take a look at both sides of that before we
Absolutely, we can definitely flesh that out.
My opinion, not speaking for the rest of you.
That's a good point.
That's good, because I'm also hesitant with the idea of the RDA being a long-term landlord. I think that's exactly what the Housing Authority is for. So again, what is the benefit to us versus to the RDA specifically as a partner long-term? I think of the RDA as addressing market failure, and so where we can step in and provide an incentive to get something turned over. We want things to be back onto the tax rolls and increase the tax value of the city. So yeah, finding ways to partner with the private sector, creating that growth in the city. Definitely interested in figuring out how this works with the Housing Authority, but thank you, yeah.
Would agree. I mean, we're really not designed to be a landlord, so I think it's a good point. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, and following on that, look at $1 million potential allocation for that, whether you're talking $80,000 units or $150,000 units, you're looking at 6 to 12 units. If that is the extent of it, how much time does RDA, in its role as landlord, dedicate to that when we're expanding the footprint of what we're looking at as far as redevelopment and so forth? So just in terms of thinking scope-wise, that's a concern. Now, if we have an avenue to do more of that, expand that may change that parameter as well. But just thinking about one chunk, one focus, one opportunity, that may bog things down. I'd be concerned about that.
Nope, absolutely. We can flesh that out as well.
But I think there's just broad, it seems like there's broad interest in pursuing the model of these types of homes and infill, and these all seem like great options.
Yeah, would agree.
Excellent. That's all I have on this one, I believe.
All right, we're good. All right, moving on.
Should I blow up the next slide? So the next project, or the next item on the agenda, is a Kessler Park discussion. This is a little outside the norm for us, so I'm going to kind of preface it with what we're looking at. There's a party that's interested in the Kessler Park as a redevelopment project, has some very specific goals and a project in mind. This is a nonprofit that would be fully donation funded. We have looked at these in the past. They've been limited. What we have specified is that before we bring these forward for a formal presentation and a permission to move into an MOU and lock a site up, we've specified that they must have 75% of their funding committed and locked in place. So we're not even talking about, we've got letters of intent to donate, something that is binding the funding to the organization, because you can tie land up for a long time with somebody who, if they don't have the money, you're turning away other potential buyers. So that is the case with this project. They're estimating about a $6 million project, so we would be looking to see them have committed in the bank $4.5 million before we would come back to the RDA with a formal proposal to enter in an MOU and negotiate out final terms for sale. So just kind of want to prep this. This is intended to be a presentation to hit highlights of this project and identify if this is something that the RDA has interest in seeing move forward. So they're looking for feedback on the presentation and on the setup to see if this is something that the RDA would be in favor of, and if so, they can continue to move on their process of securing enough funding that they can come forward for a formal proposal to the RDA. We are still taking other proposals for this site. We actually have had an inquiry just last week for this site, so this is still out for grabs for any developer who comes forward with a proposal to develop on this location. So as we're looking here, the purpose is to address housing for folks who are truly at the lowest levels of income, or for transitional housing for the unhoused is also part of this proposal. Safe and affordable housing for these folks. This is a 40-unit proposal. It's a mixture of duplexes and some tiny homes, for better term, modified to help address these housing needs within this space. The site plan is located here. I know it's hard to see it's not real high detail, but you're looking at First Street on the right-hand side, Second Street on the left-hand side of the block, and then the private drive through the middle. On the First Street access, those are duplexes that have a single-car garage, and that would be set up for folks who have a vehicle. The Second Street access, those are 4 units, are no garages, so you're talking about there's a vehicle they'll be parking in driveway with no garage space. The units in the middle are those tiny homes that are defined and intended to be transitional housing for folks who are experiencing homelessness. And the remainder of the space to the north would be an office space and keeping a portion of the park up in that area. Access would be coming off of Maple Street and curving through. Again, this would still have to go through a formal site plan process, ensure that all dimensions, connections, it's a viable site plan. But this is the basic concept that they're looking at, so about 40 units total. The duplexes with garages, this is the basic exterior concept and floor plan of these units, and then the exterior elevation on the right. These are 2-bedroom, I believe 1 bath on these units. These are the duplexes without garages, again, smaller size, and again, no garage access on the Second Street. So they would still have to have a parked drive or a driveway for parking to meet code requirements. Again, floor plan and then the exterior renovation or the exterior renderings. The third space, these are the tiny home or transition homes in the center of the property. They are, think of them as a studio apartment. You're talking a little over 400 square feet, an open living space connected with a kitchen, so that's your living room and, say, Murphy bed or a bed set in that area, and then a single enclosed bathroom. That's the exterior review of those. These are the basic concepts. As this would be something that would fall under the new code, they'd have to be reviewed to ensure that it meets any design requirements and site elements of the new zoning code. So that would be part of the approval process should it move to that point. But this is the basic concept that they're looking for at Kessler Park. Be happy to, the applicant is here, or I shouldn't say applicant, the developer, Mary Catherine Partlow is here. Would be happy to answer any questions on what she's looking to do. Again, just a reminder, this is not moving to lock this up. This is just looking for feedback on the concept and if there are any specific concerns or questions that you'd have about this type of development going within the Kessler Park location. And I'll go back to the site plan.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Would the concept, this would be, all of the units developed would be rental units then?
Correct.
Okay. And then I had one other question. I think I was going to make the comment that RDA, when we had talked about this site previously, we had been interested actually in going into like a higher density housing, and so this would be like a departure from that. But I am interested, obviously, and supportive to see more affordable housing concepts come forward. So I guess that's my feedback right now.
And that is correct. The previous conversations with the RDA has shown Kessler Park at higher densities than what this is identified, but it would still be within the scope of some of the surrounding properties, which are single-family, twin home type of properties as well.
Any other questions, right?
If it's appropriate, I would love to hear from.
Yep, absolutely.
Please.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
You sure you're done?
I'm good.
I never knew you talk this much, usually because I'm the one talking. So hi, everybody. I thank you for having me here and to be able to talk about this. I have been in a lot of meetings, Jonah meetings, housing opportunity meetings, and they've always talked, even Aaron, I've listened to Aaron many times, and this is what my concept came up with. Now, I want you to understand that we have 4 duplexes that are on the right-hand side. Those are all 2 bedrooms. We also have on one of those duplexes, there's an ADA, so which means that if you are literally wheelchair-bound, you'll be able to access that one side. The other side will be more just more handy capable. The other side's more handicapped. So that's just on one side. Then on the other side, we got 4 one-bedrooms, which then, when I worked with the current, when they came up, they said if they could have done 40 more units of one-bedrooms, they would have rented them out in about 5.3 seconds. So that's why I got into the one-bedrooms. And then the top building that you see there, that's actually not just my office. It will actually have 2 showers in it. It will also have, it'll have 3 bathrooms, 2 showers, and also storage. So we're also going to be, this will be our way of communicating with the homeless to be able to get them and getting them attached to services that are possible. So, then in the middle units, we can put at least 2 people in each one of those units. They are 14 by 32. They will be fully furnished with all of the necessary things to live in it. Our hope there is that we will get people off of the street. We will get them figuring out what is causing their issue of being on the street. Sometimes it's eviction, sometimes it's criminal background. Because what people don't understand is in Eau Claire, so you come out of prison, you got 5 years probation. You have to wait 7 years before you can rent in Eau Claire. And that's ridiculous, but it's the truth. And if you get an eviction, good luck ever finding a place to rent, because if it's on your record, you're stuck with it. So what I'm willing to do within our program, the nonprofit, is we will work with these individuals, getting them to the next step, working with landlords to say, hey, we've had them for 6 months to a year. They're doing very well. Let's get them on to the next levels. This is our first project of this nonprofit, and we will be hopefully after this. You guys got the numbers. We sent a packet in what the numbers are going to look like. So we'll be a nonprofit that'll actually be doing more development, kind of like what Aaron was talking about, where we're going to be buying homes, rehabbing them. We also have another property that we hope to put at least 40 more units on. Those will be more where you can buy and also rent in that area. So we are coming in and wanting to make housing our top priority, but also making it so that the lowest of the low income actually have a sustainable place to live. So it's a lot, and I understand why you had a little bit of like, I don't know if we want to be the landlords, because it is. It's a lot of putting in, and but working. What I'm trying to do is I'm from Eau Claire. I'm 3rd generation here in Eau Claire. I have watched my town go from a very vibrant town to now coming back as a vibrant town, right? I went through the lull of Eau Claire. It was ugly, but we're coming back in a little different manner than we were before, but we're coming back. But the problem is that somehow or another, we did this, right? Where we either live here or we're down here. It used to be Eau Claire was pretty much like this. We had a lot of money coming into Eau Claire. There is a lot of good home-made businesses in Eau Claire. And now it's like this, where we have all this other stuff. And so what I'm trying to do is bring this up to here so that we're kind of meeting on the same level. We don't have to live, like you guys say, in these homes that are being not worked on, but these will be nice, stable homes that will be also made with material that is sustainable, and we're going to be using pole. Have you ever seen pole barns? I don't know how country y'all are. Pole barns, that's the material we're going to be using. So they'll look like little garden sheds on the outside. They'll be totally modernized in the inside, but it's kind of bringing that garden factor. And then as he was talking about, we are very community oriented. We will have fruit trees on our property for people to be able to come and utilize. We're going to have raised gardens. We have a dog park we're going to be putting into this property. That'll bring the community to us. And so that's about it, guys. Anything else do you have questions on?
Ray, go ahead.
Could you talk a little bit more about the nonprofit? Like, what's the name? Who are you?
All right,
who's
so
involved?
I started the nonprofit. It's called the Garden Growing a Community. That's all I'm about. And I now have board members. I'm bringing more people in. Aaron remembers me like 2 years ago, just asking questions and being put on roadmaps. So I'm a new nonprofit. I really am. I wasn't planning at 60 years old to start something. I just wasn't, but here I am. It's kind of like that. If you can't see somebody doing what you want, you go do it yourself. I'm from that generation. And so luckily, the two men in the back over there and this gentleman helped me get to my vision true. So you have Everyday Surveying, which is Mark. Say hi, Mark. Good morning. And you have Brian from BC Architect. He's actually my treasurer on my board, so there is a board member here. And our whole goal, actually my president, I'm hoping Mark gets him set up on it, is an engineer, right? I have an engineer and an architect on my board. And then also, I have a person who has prison experience. I have a person who has disability experience. I have people who have all kinds of life experience. That's the difference between my nonprofit and other nonprofits, is that we're bringing life experience into this. So that's about what I am, is that it's always nice to have that education. We all love it. You know, I have my degree. But I'm telling you, living that street life, I've been homeless myself. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I know what it's like to go to agencies now, you know, and you just feel like they don't hear you. And I want that to be part of our project, is that we actually hear our tenants. We try to understand what's going on, doing an individual plan with them versus a wide scope. You know what I mean? Because not everything fits the same. We're all individuals. But as individuals, we bring basic beauty to a community, right? And that's what we'll do. We'll work with one of the requirements for my people that'll be coming off the street is they do volunteer things in our community. If we work with elderly and they mow lawns or shovel removal, Lord knows that's coming soon, right? So yeah, that's the whole premise, is that we are a community, but we're here to be a partnership with the other communities around. The reason that Kessler Park, and he will say I've been after Kessler Park for years, is that because one, I don't have to worry about people saying not in my backyard, right? Because they're already there. The homeless are already living in Kessler Park. They're just not housed. They're also across the street at Dell's Pond, or at Architectural Dell's Arc. So I don't have to worry about that. The other part is that bus line right there. Grocery store up the road. Job center right up the road. It's an absolutely perfect place to put this. And then now that you guys built a beautiful park right above, and the children that will be staying in our 2 bedrooms will have a park right across the street. So that's it. Any other?
I'm sorry, I missed the name of the nonprofit?
The Garden, Growing a Community.
Okay. Thank you. All right, will you be partnering with anyone else, any other nonprofits, for this project, or?
For this project, the coordination will go once we get up and running, so we'll work with CC Adapt. We'll work with peer programs. When it comes to the other parts, probably not. We'll work with Western Dairyland because we'll be working with them getting people housed, because they're already working on trying to get people housed. When I talk to them, they say what they have the hardest problem with is getting landlords to actually rent to them, right? Because they've had bad experiences. And so we'll work with Western Dairyland because we'll be the landlord that will take those people. You know, because if you have an eviction, you have a criminal record, landlords are like, nope, I don't want you. We'll be, yep, we want you. So that's how we'll collaborate with the already existing programs that are here in Eau Claire. But on the other aspect, I want to include them on being on the board, giving us, information, what we need to change, how we can adapt. It's an ever-flowing project. I think we get lost sometimes when we just sit in a stone. You know what I mean? We put our foundation in and we're like, yep, this is gonna work. We don't ever wanna be like that. We wanna make sure that we're always kind of moving with the way the community is moving.
Any other questions?
But just so you know, the main reason we came here is because we're at the point of that we have everything already. We have the contractors, we have everybody's ready to go. We know the numbers, we know what we gotta do. I'm going to be, but I don't want to ask people for money until I know that this is where we're going, right? You can ask him, chicken and egg. I have been dealing with chicken and egg since I've started this project. Well, you got this, well, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I just don't feel comfortable going for grant money until I know this is where we're going to land. This is our home. And I just think this is a fantastic project for that property because it is going to bring, not 40, I know we wanted 40, but because of